children of the 80s, haven't we grown? We're tender as a lotus, and we are tougher than stone. And the age of our innocence is somewhere in the garden.
We are now changing our perspective to sociology and philosophy. Professor Hermann. Professor Hermann from Munich and Rome, I learned in Rome. He is member of the Council of the European Institute of Political, Economic and Social Studies. And in Munich you are in a research position of the Max Planck Institute of Social Law.
International and foreign and international social law. Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk here. I changed a little bit the title. I changed making in the title the reference to the Vita Activa from Hannah Arendt. And with this actually trying to make a reference as well to a wider understanding of economics. Linking to the previous presentations, I thought it's a little bit about rehumanizing technology, rehumanizing the development in terms of taking responsibility. A, in respect of technology, digitalization, and B, in terms of economics, because economics is as well very much dehumanized system today. You may agree, you don't have to agree, but that's my position. The standard economics, the standard position is making reference to 4 points. Incentives matter, scarcity, comparative advantage, and cost-benefit analysis. I will come back to this and try to link our discussions. What does it mean, talking about digitization, when we link it to this traditional orientation of economics? The second, economics is always about socio-material reproduction of society. It is not about individuals exchanging goods, producing and exchanging. There's much more involved. Not necessarily thought about when we talk about economics, in economics, but it is a fact. There's always some consideration of welfare. I say some because it is always a different stance. Welfare functions seems to be an objective fact, but it is much more. It is about, there we are. It is about a wider understanding. Any economic activity in the usual understanding is about being in business and making profit, but it is as well about staying in business. 2 different things. The other point is, it is about profitability. We want to get as much as possible. At the same time, it is about profit rateability, what I said, the profit rate. How much do we get? How much do we invest? And that means as well that there is a permanent tension between over-accumulation, we have too much money, resources, and whatsoever, and at the same time, devaluation. If you think about a car today, you pay less and you get more. You get a little bit with driving computer, a computer on wheels. So, some kind of impressionist things. If we talk, computer people will know it, this old WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get on the screen. But is this really so? How much deception is there? What we see is predictive shipping. It's something where we actually don't have to order, but we get the goods before we actually think about them. Amazon made this, patented this. There are different things like this. You have all under one roof in economics. seemingly. There are huge monopolies controlling an entire sector, the entire tourist industry. I could go on, and there are so many things that are really exciting. As well, what we heard already in medicine, things we could not even dare to imagine before. In law, we have the same things. You don't have to go to court, you just, there are some devices, you get the judgment, or you get your opposition via computer, via apps. But is it really so new? Leibniz came up with this. It's actually interesting to read it. It is on the internet only in French, but it is basically the things we are talking about today. It's a computer. That's the basics. Long time ago. Then we come again and again, since a long time, some issue, it's always the same. Poems like this, my own translation, To the Mouse in the Trap. There are different versions of this story. You are running around in circles looking for the whole. It's for nothing. Understand the soul. Ponder. There's only one resort you have. Look inside yourself. So there is the technology, and at the same time, it is about human beings. It is about daily interaction. It is about what do we do with all these exciting things. Never trust any automatism behind it. Never feel forced. It is us who are doing these things. It is something, I looked this site up recently, Amazon Fresh. If you look up the entire URL, you come up with Emma and with charity. And the German, the older Germans at least will know Emma, that was the Tante Emma Laden. It was the corner shop. That's where interaction is taking place. And this is where things are actually negotiated in different forms today with technology. But the core issue is about this. And the core issue is about language we use. And of course, we all know this. Money governs the world in different languages. You always find the same thing, and at the same time you find something very different. There is a sub-language. What money governs the world is translated, or is a translation, goes hand in hand with different value systems we have. And you find it in the languages. It is faith, it is business in the strict sense, it is pragmatism with the Dutch, it is the state that is the highest priority in France, and it is age in Korean. I think this connection is quite interesting, quite challenging as well when we talk about digitization, which is only about figures, it's only about numbers, combined in different ways, and this is what we always did with our little brain. Combining different things in different way, creating, establishing new knowledge. We leave it, apparently, to the machine, and at the same time, we have these digital platforms, and one point is interesting in terms of economics and in terms of law, that we forget that it is us as societies who have to do something with it. Utilization of this knowledge for the common good does not take place. What we have today in economics is this monopolization. It is something that is not clearly used by societies, but by a certain understanding of economics. And there we don't know exactly, I come to the digital part now a little bit more, we don't know exactly what we are talking about. Algorithms, is it a means of production? That's one position. Are data raw material for production? Is information the commodity of today, the core, ultimate commodity? With this as a background, I want to come now to the 4 issues. Incentives matters. Incentives matters is the standard sentence, the standard item, and at the same time my point is there is a special benefit. Incentives is not just about the utilitarian understanding of incentives, but there is more to it. Incentives matters, I could go on for ages, for days at least, to talk about the benefits, short-term benefits of all these digital industries. I called it, I have to look it up myself, concentralization. We have concentration and centralization going hand in hand, called network effects in economics, that you have to concentrate and centralize to be effective. That's the best thing that can happen. This is the way we get all the information. We have a double-sided monopoly, because on the one hand you have it in economics. Look at Amazon, look at Booking.com, look at Facebook, all these things. And at the same time, we profit from it. We shouldn't deny this. We profit from it. Because if we would have a small Facebook, it's the old telephone story. Have one telephone or 2, it's useless. 1 especially. 2, at least you can talk to somebody. It makes sense if everybody has a telephone and you can call everybody. And especially if you then can do it for free, or nearly free. This is exciting. These actors, we have to think about it. It is, of course, enterprises, it is firms, Amazon, Google, but at the same time, it's more. These are markets. So they are not, in the traditional understanding, simply actors as the large enterprise, as the monopoly. This was coming up before. It is a process of socialization. It's always difficult to understand mentally, psychologically. We have on the one hand individualization. Everybody runs around with a mobile phone and with other devices. People don't talk to each other. People sit next to each other and send messages to each other, but there is apparently no interaction. At the same time, it is a process of socialization in terms of law and in terms of how we are actually interacting. There's a huge creative effect that we can use. But then we come to the next point, which is scarcity, one of the 4 core economic issues. Scarcity in a global world of abundance. I couldn't believe for a long time that this saying of 1% and the 99 is actually more or less true. There is so much wealth that if this 1% would give a little bit of their wealth distributed, we wouldn't have many problems we have today. At least not in terms of material resources. It is amazing, I never trust figures, but it is amazing that there is quite a lot of truth in this. But there is another thing of abundance. There is abundance of social networks. There is abundance of interaction that we do as human beings. It is not only the technology. In this way, it is as well something where we have to be careful when we discuss these issues. When probably many of you heard about this zero marginal cost. Things doesn't cost anymore. We should consider how much things cost because others do the work. mobile phones are still produced somewhere. The software is the one thing. I came back from China, but it's not just China, it's not a political thing in China. But if you look at Foxconn and the production of these things, of these mobile phones, take whichever make, there you see who pays. If you think here, I don't know in Austria, but if you think about people who are living or who can only live independently because there are discounters, this is part of the cost. If you look at the standard things of Uber, taxi support, transaction cost is what we pay, what we do at our desk at home. If we book a flight, if we look for the driver of Uber, this is transaction cost. This lowers the price, and this is nothing else than externalization. I could talk a long time about what it is in all the details. And with all this, we have a huge increase of productivity. I said before, the car is a driving computer. I don't know how many gigabytes they produce per hour if you just drive. There's nothing happening that you put something into the machine or whatsoever. They produce it just by driving, sending information. The car today has more chips and electronic devices in it than the old NASA shuttle that went to the moon. These are amazing things, and this is a problem then in terms of law, in terms of economics, where we have this tension of, on the one hand, modules. This is one proposal in terms of social law, modules that we look for individual solutions. You work 1 hour, then we adapt the social law just for this part you work. But it's still, if you refer back, if you accept this thesis of socialization, we have to find new ways in terms of how to secure the social existence. And this is not least one thing, that we have the private players today, not least, what's the name, Microsoft with this huge foundation. And I was amazed how many foundations of this kind actually exist. Uber has one, and all these things have one. But at the same time, we still have the old idea of the state. And this is something we have to discuss, what to do with it. We have the nation state as traditional reference, and at the same time, we have a new development taking place. We have a new, it had been mentioned already, new potential of direct participation. And with this, I come to the comparative advantage. The third, in this case, the third standard economic formula. The comparative advantage, and I put against it the cooperative progress, or the cooperative progressing. Comparative advantage, competitive advantage is it actually. We are competing against each other, and the idea is of economics, everybody will win. If we work from the beginning together, I think this is a real win-win situation where we get much faster to, as well, a proper cost-benefit analysis to come to the last point here. Cost-benefit, you invest, you get something out on the individual level of the enterprise. How much does society actually pay? Things that are not included. Of course, it is environmental issues that come immediately to mind, but there is as well this thing of social interaction that are part of our existence. Sometimes in a very good, positive things, and sometimes as conflict. But conflicts are there to be solved, and they are to be solved by us. The two questions, cui bono, cui facit aliquid. Who wins and who does actually something? Who is able, who is allowed to act? This is an economic question and this is a legal question. I think there is much hype about all this digitization. I don't want to doubt, to question what is happening. But it may be true that we are reaching a switch from assessing wealth by productivity to assessing affluences by a matter of distribution. We have so much resources, and it is a major question for economics to rethink issues in terms of redistribution. There was a funny thing a long, long time ago. Those who are in flowers and those who are in history of economics will know about the tulip bubble. People invested and paid for a single bulb of tulips with what they spent for their house. Not a flat, a house. They ruined themselves. And this is what we found with the financial market, this is what we found with the .com area, and this may be something where, at least in part, some people fail in the same way when it comes to digitization. In part. It is a question of negotiating these things, and it is a question, if you trust the old saying, in the beginning there was the word, there's always somebody who has to speak it. And this is something where I think our ethical guidelines have to come from. We have to keep control over what we say. We have to accept that machines are machines. They are tools, excellent tools. I couldn't do without it, but at the same time they are not more. This means as well, I always find it interesting, they make mistakes. Self-driving cars, I always find it funny, the self-driving car is not allowed to make an accident. We are allowed. So we have to rebalance this issue as well. What is about accidents? And then, of course, who is responsible? This is the question. And finally, accepting that we are talking about humans in economics, in law, and in terms of digitization. And this means that we have to take what is called social responsibility. There are many solutions without looking at the problems. And I think we have to come to the stage that we're looking for the real problems and then come from there to look for the solutions. Thank you.